Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Franky Nuts and I'm gonna show you how I made my new track, Your Lies, featuring Voices. Let's go! Alright, let's jump into it. We start off with the vocal and some synth plugs. The first synth that's playing is an E-piano with some bit crushing on it. And some little bit of distortion. And then there's another plug coming in. It's this one. And then we have the vocal. As you can see, it's one single channel, but we made this in a separate vocal project because it will take a lot of stems, and this project already has over 130 channels, so I bounced out a lot of things to a single channel. Otherwise, you know, my CPU would die. So basically the vocal is a lot of different single channels. Some are affected with reverb, some are affected with delays, and have a higher, a lower, some ad-libs. And we all put them together and then add some compression, EQing to make them all fit together. And then all three of them sound like this. If you feel that way, why don't you want... Then we go to the second part of the build-up. We have the vocal and some new plugs. We have some claps, a small like loop for percussion, and we have these plugs. So this is actually a very simple plug made in Serum. Some very simple wavetables. Not really much of a fix, just some distortion, some compression, EQing. And the other plug is this one. It's more type of a dead mouse synth. This is also really simple, just two saw waves, a filter, some distortion, another filter, dimension, EQing, compression. And the same is done externally, just some OTT, and just to make sure it sounds a bit cooler. I have this plugin, an enveloper. I also have this in Cubase. I'm not sure, you don't have it in Ableton, I guess. But it's basically a transient shaper, just to make the plug hit a bit harder. Then I have arpeggio. It's also really easy to make. Just grab a simple synth, and in Logic you have this MIDI effect called arpeggiator. You just make a MIDI scale. So you have like 4 notes in here, and then it will arpeggiate between them on a rate of 1/16 for my part, but you can do whatever you like. You can adjust the note length. If you can choose if you want it to go up and down. So that's how you made the arpeggio really quickly. And then the most important things for this part is the reese. Actually, we have a low reese, like really bassy, and that's Inspire. It's actually just a preset, and if you go to the factory one, there's this preset called PA Kung Fu, and it's just a really nice simple reese. All I did is put the detune a bit lower, some OTT, some EQing and compression again. And then I have this one, and this is a reese made in Serum with just 2 saw waves, some filters, quite a lot of distortion, some multiband compression again, remove the low end, and then just a lot of distortion plugins, as you can see. And you might think like, holy shit, that's a lot, but each plugin is just doing a little bit. Like this one is just doing like 5% of distortion. Then we have the OTT, which is like 11%. Then we have Federator, really cool distortion plugin, in my opinion. You use it a lot, which is doing quite a lot actually, but you know, it's not such a heavy drive. So yeah, and then you just do a lot of different distortions, doing all like 10-15%. So yeah, then it builds up. You just gotta add a lot of FX, obviously, risers, sweep downs to fill up the gaps and make it sound pretty cool. Then we get to the drop. We have this sound right here, and this is basically the main sound. it's actually really simple. Like, a lot of people ask me, how do you make this all-in-one type of basses? Actually really simple, but it all comes down to a good riff, because most dubstep is just one key with heavy bass lines, and it's just like a blend of a lot of basses. And with this type of style, I tend to let the riff do the work. So like bum 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 bum, and just layer the hell out of that. So this is my main bass. This is where I started with. It's pretty easy. You have this wavetable in the stock digital wavetables from Serum called Dirty Saw. And the sync is really important. So you put that on 12 o'clock. Just added some bright white noise. And then for the FX, this is all the same for all the layers. Basically all the same. So a little bit of phasing, a little bit of chorus. Quite a lot of distortion. Filter again to remove the harsh edges. Then some multi-band compression. And I removed the lows out of here because I make another layer who's gonna do the low end, because this sounds pretty cool in the mids and in the highs, but it doesn't sound heavy, and I want the wobble to sound heavy. So with that being said, I made this layer. Also very simple. It's a square-ish type of wavetable. You can find it in the stock here. It's basic FDC. Also with a filter again. Some phasing, some chorus, quite a lot of distortion again. Yeah, and the rest is just the same like the previous preset. So it's all just, you know, like a filter, multi-band compression, etc. One thing which is really important by layering though is that your LFOs and your envelopes are exactly the same for every layer or every sound that you use. Then I did one more layer, and which is a copy of the first sound, but just an octave lower, and it has some frequency modulation. So in comparison with all the other layers where I use just one oscillator, I use two oscillators in here, where one doesn't have a level, so it's not doing anything, but it's FMing with this wavetable. So this wavetable is quite simple, and then you kind of mix it in a way, or modulate it with this wavetable. So it sounds a bit more harsh, and I also lowered the octave, so it will sound more heavy already. So it sounds like this. Once again, it's basically the same effect rack. Some distortion, some hyperdimension, and some, stereo width. A bit more phasing to it on this one, in comparison with the others. Some multi-band compression, and here I added a little bit of modulation on this particular frequency, just to give it that boost in the low end, which I remove later on in this EQ. Same for all the higher layers. I remove the lows and I just use one layer. In this particular part, I just use this layer for the bass. Because if you use bass, like low frequencies on all your layers, it will sound super muddy and there's no clarity at all. So all of them together, it sounds like that. Then I have one more layer, which is a super like squarey, marshmallow sounding sound. Also really, really simple. You can hear it's basically a stock preset. So yeah, it's this one, a little bit of modulation over here. Then again, not even, it's not even doing too much to it, because I wanted to keep it mono. And some drive, and some multi-band compression again. And over here, more compression, another OTT for multi-banding, and some EQing again. And like I showed before, this EQ might look quite drastically, but I don't need any low frequencies because this layer is already filling that gap. So Like I said, I remove a lot of low ends in all my layers and just use one layer for low end. Then I have one more layer, it's this one. And this is quite a cool trick that Dairo showed me. It's a bright white, which is frequency modulated by a very granular wavetable. So that way it sounds a bit more aggressive than just a single white noise, and that really adds up nice with the sub. So it almost sounds like the sub, like the white noise is part of the sub, which is really cool in the club. And it also fills up all your frequencies. And in the end, if you play them all together, you just have a really nice filled up sound. Alright, so that's the first part of the drop. And then we go on to the second part of the drop, which I bounced out as well, because these are like some heavy bass sounds. And it sounds like this. Basically what I've done is I made a riff, I bounced it out, and then I cut some parts of the bass and moved it to different places. So as you can see, I have some cuts in here. They're all just like moved left to right, reversed. And for instance, which is really cool in Logic, we have these red fades, which are tape stop fades. So when it goes in here into the other sample, this sample will tape stop down and this sample will tape stop up. So you get like a transition, which is quite cool, I think. And I also do it sometimes on the very attack of a single bass, so it sounds a bit more like, so it's coming up along. So yeah, that's basically the second part of the drop. And then there's one more thing I would like to show, and that's this part. The last layer of the first basses that I used, I made a new sound, which sounds, on itself, it sounds pretty horrible. But it's an addition to the note scale of the previous sounds. So, for instance, all these all-in-one layers are playing the same riff, like boom, 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 boom. Then this one is doing the same, but just a seventh in the note scale up to that. So if you play them all together, so you know, it almost sounds like it's a guitar or something, and it's basically like you have one melody and you have another melody that on itself doesn't sound too good, but both of them together it sounds really harmonic, and you know, I just really like to do that. So yeah, after that we go down in a breakdown. We have the build up again, whereas the vocal, and then the second drop is just basically a VIP of the first drop. So I still have the same layers, I'm not changing any sounds, but I'm doing a different riff. So it all sounds basically the same. And so it continues, and I did the same with the basses which I had in the second drop of the first drop, and I just VIP'd that as well. So just play some sounds in a different position, reverse them, you know, do tape stopping, do pitch effects everywhere. And then once you've done that, you basically have your entire track. One thing I tend to do as well is for all these layers, I made a separate group. As you can see, extra OTT fat, that's how I called it, never mind the names. And basically I just did some more distortion, more EQing to glue them all together, because I still had too many frequencies down here. And I added some more here, some compression, etc. And then it goes to the drop, and the drop is where my sidechain happens. So I sidechain with Pro MB, and then I have another sidechain actually, which is LFO2, which cuts out this part where the snare hits. So just to, you know, do that little extra cut so the snare really hits really hard in the face. And that's it. Another thing, by the way, as you can see, some parts are clipping here. And I don't know about every DAW, but in Logic, these single channels, they have infinite headroom, which means you can go into the reds without having them to clip. That's why I think they also turn orange. And then for the master, like on the output, that's the only channel you can clip on. So I'll make sure that my master is always on 0. As you can see, nothing is going above that. But for me, it's just a volume measurement, because, for instance, you can start your track on like your loudest point in the track would be -6 or something to keep headroom on your master. For instance, if your kick is -6, then your bass has to be -9 or -12, and then your FX -18, 16, which is just a bit confusing to me, and I don't really like that overview. So I keep 0 as my loudest point in the mix, and then from there on I'll go down. So if I put the sound on -6, then I'll know in the scale it's definitely like 6 dBs lower than my loudest point in the mix. And sometimes I even go above that. So for instance, with this one, my kicks and my snares are like +3 dB. So 0 is basically my null point, if I can say that correctly. So 0 is like the way I'll measure my mix, and then I'll just do an extra step for the kick snare because I just want them to be super heavy. And eventually, when you limit, they will put the kick and the snare down as well, because that's the highest peak in your wave file. So yeah, that's just a really cool trick, I think. I mean, it works for me. Everybody does it his own way. But yeah, that way it's not officially clipping, it's not ruining the sound, but you can still, you know, use 0 as your volume measurement. Anyway, yeah, once you have this drop, make a nice outro, and that's basically it. So I hope I learned you something with this video, and please like, subscribe, you know, leave a comment, and if you have any questions, just text me on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. I'll try to reply. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.